Welcome to Community Watch, Greg.
Doc.
So we're interviewing candidates today for Rome City Commission, Ward 1 and 3.
Mm-hmm.
And the election is November 3rd. And in these wards, you can vote for up to 3 candidates, or just 2, or just 1, if there's just one that you feel strongly about. And we will have our candidates in a minute. Some of these interviews you are doing solo because we had some scheduling issues. But we'll be right back after this with our candidates, so stay with us.
Have a kit so you're ready for any emergency. Develop a plan for what you and your family will do before disaster strikes, and stay informed during severe weather any way you can.
Welcome back to Community Watch, and now we're joined by Commissioner Bill Armbruster, and he's running for re-election in Ward 1. Thank you for coming, Commissioner.
Thank you, sir. It's a pleasure to be here.
All right, we're going to get right into the questions. What is your primary motivation for running for City Commissioner in this election?
My primary motivation? I love Rome, Georgia. That's primary. Secondary, I guess, I'd like to see Rome progress with new industry, better education, although we have excellent education here, and you're a prime example of good education in Rome, Georgia. I think we can even improve on that. Draw younger people here. New industry is an economic driver of any community. Parks and Rec, we have beautiful Parks and Rec. I think we can still expand and make them even better. These are some of the reasons. I think Rome is also fiscally responsible. We're not overspending. The city in particular is watching its budget very closely. Just a great community to raise a family. And had 3 sons, and they all grew up here and went through the school system and really enjoy Rome.
Okay. Do you see any benefit to term limits for city commissioners in order to ensure new approaches to problems and new ideas?
I do. I know some of the commissioners do not, but I do. I think term limits are great, and my philosophy is to serve, if reelected, 2 terms and leave it to somebody else with new ideas.
All right. The protection of our neighborhoods against commercial encroachment is an ongoing struggle. Is there any way that the city can protect our neighborhoods so the citizens do not have to fight this battle again and again?
I really don't know what you're referencing, but I don't think we have that much commercial encroachment in Rome, Georgia. I'd like to see maybe even a little more commercial encroachment if it's the right kind of industry.
Okay. Explain why it is necessary to sell the area that is now being referred to as the city's Central Park. It would seem that the majority of the citizens are against the proposed sale and development. Recently, a social media page received over 800 members in 2 days who are opposed to this development. Explain your position.
Are you talking about the Riverside Park
Yes, sir.
development? The apartments in particular?
Just the whole sale and development.
Okay. The renderings that I've seen, I think, are very positive in that it's approximately 90-some acres, 93 acres. The apartments that are going up there are going to take up maybe 10% of that space and be up by the railroad tracks. The renderings that I've seen include 124 units, which are very attractive. I've seen a decorative pond on the rendering, as well as a dog park, which is becoming more and more popular every day. I know in the neighborhood that I live in, almost everybody has a dog and they walk it. Mm-hmm. And a dog park would be a nice addition to this new apartment complex. I think it'd be an addition. We have a beautiful park across the street, Ridge Ferry Park, which is 53 acres. And it has swings, playground, picnic area, walking trails, right next to the river. And the property that we're talking about was previously a landfill. And I don't know whether you have ever been in this area or not, but I did walk it, and it needs a lot of improvement. I wouldn't be the one to invest my money in this area because it's going to take a large amount of money to bring it up to standards.
Okay. The city is taking possession of the GE property with intentions of turning it into a park. Would the use of this property be better as a commercial development? How do you justify turning an industrial property into a park and at the same time turning what is being called the city's Central Park into a commercial property?
Well, the GE industrial property is 123 acres. And with the records that this property has had in the past, I think the city of Rome is restricted in what they can do to this piece of property. I think EPA as well as GE has restrictions on the property, and I don't think we could use it as an industrial site. I think its primarily use is as a recreational park. And if that's the case, that's 123 acres. I'm sure they'll have bike trails, walking trails, whatever is required to make it a beautiful and a sociable place for our citizens.
Okay, I have a series of questions inspired by a recent U.S. Census. African American and Hispanic residents of Rome total over 40% of the population. Do the city boards and committees reflect these numbers? How can the city do a better job at placing more minorities on its boards and commissions?
Well, our HR, Human Resources Department, has tried that. They've advertised, they've gone out. The only way really to do that, I think, is by word of mouth. If we go out and get the people on certain committees, if they're willing to serve, I mean, word of mouth would expand that. But as I understand, all the advertising that we've done and all the promoting that we've done to include those people in our city government, it just hasn't worked.
Okay. According to the U.S. Census, the population in Rome has decreased by almost a percentage point over the past 5 years. If population growth in Rome is too much to expect, what suggestions would you have to simply maintain the population that we have?
Ooh, that's a tough one. You know, we have great medical facilities, great educational facilities. We have everything that a community really needs. We could grow retirement and make this a retirement community, but I favor new industry. New industry is the economic driver of any community. And if you look around, and I've traveled the country and Europe and other areas, and new industry brings young people and increases population. Also increases the educational level of people. Rome right now, the unemployment rate is 7.6%. Chautauqua County is less than Rome. And in the past, Chautauqua County's always had a higher unemployment rate than Rome. We need to concentrate on creating new jobs.
Okay. 30% of the children in Rome and Floyd County live below the poverty line. Is that an issue that the current commission is addressing in any way? Should the city commission be working on solutions or services for those who live in poverty?
Yes, I think the city commission is working on it in conjunction with Berry Schools and some of the other educational facilities, and that Anna K. Davies School is a primary example with starting with kindergarten and pre-kindergarten, pre-K. This is where we need to concentrate our efforts, the youngsters. Teach them ethics and behavior and education. The Boys and Girls Club is a great example. Most of the children that attend Boys and Girls Club today graduate from high school. In the past, that hasn't been the case in Rome, Georgia.
If elected, would you be willing to have town hall meetings with citizens in the area you represent in order to discuss upcoming controversial issues? Are there other ways that you plan to communicate with your constituents?
I'm all in favor of town hall meetings. The more people that get involved, the better the community will succeed in doing whatever they propose to do.
Do you believe that the city of Rome is doing enough to protect its historic buildings and areas on the National Register? Please explain.
They're trying. You know, you go to Europe and you see these old buildings, but in America, not just Rome, but in America, a building that's 30, 40 years old is razed. I mean, they tear it down and we start fresh. I don't think we're doing enough, to be quite honest.
All right. There is discussion about creating an arts district in Rome. Do you think this would be a good time for the city to support an arts headquarters in Rome, perhaps to house the Rome Area Council for the Arts, especially when many other towns have a similar building, for example, Cartersville and Calhoun?
I do. I lived in a community in Columbus, Ohio, and the young yuppies came in and created an arts community, and it has been very successful, and it's had tremendous growth, and I think we can start something like that in Rome and continue to make it grow.
During your tenure, the current SPLOST will end. What project would you submit for a new SPLOST?
Ooh, a new SPLOST. I think we need industrial parks in this area to create new jobs, high-paying jobs. Industrial parks, look around us. I know we're not next to I-75, but good industrial parks will create jobs, and I'd like to see money spent on that type of properties.
There is discussion regarding relocating the city's recycling center. Why is that necessary, and where would you like to see it relocate?
I personally have not been involved in any of that discussion. I really don't know where we'd relocate it to. I know any recycling center is not a pleasant sight to live next door to, but where to put it, I haven't even given it a thought.
Okay. Do you feel that a substantial number of low-income or minority Romans have a lack of trust for local government? If so, what might be done to help solve this problem?
That may be a perception. I don't think so. I really don't think so. I think most people trust our local government and also the people that work for the city. We have excellent employees. We do a lot for the people that live in Rome. I don't see that.
Okay. How would you suggest increasing the participation of young people in the process of local government and also encouraging them to vote?
Ooh. You know, local government takes a lot of time, and young people today do not have a lot of spare time. Somehow, if we could assign them to certain committees that will not commit them for a lot of their extracurricular hours, I think it would be a step in the right direction. Just assign them to committees that meet once or twice a month, maybe for an hour or two, so they could express their opinion and also learn from government that exists.
Do you support the current system of voting for 3 candidates per seat? Doesn't this system give the incumbent an unfair advantage?
I don't think it does. You know, all we need is competition, and anybody can sign up to vote. It's one of those things that I know the last election I had no opposition whatsoever in Ward 1. And there are 14,000 registered voters in Rome. And I really think some of those people are well qualified to run for a city office.
Okay. Should Rome's mayor be elected by the citizens of Rome rather than selected by the commissioners?
No, I don't believe so.
All right. Well, Commissioner, ends our questions. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
We'll be right back with more after this.
Welcome to Understood.org, a free online resource for parents of kids with learning and attention issues, with personalized recommendations, tools, and expert advice.
Welcome back to Community Watch, and now we're being joined by Commissioner Milton Slack, and he's running for re-election in Ward 1. Commissioner, welcome to the show, and we're going to get right into the questions.
Okay.
What is your primary motivation for running for city commissioner in this election?
Because I always think that I can help Rome to be better. I've seen Rome at its worst, and I know where we are now. The progress, the steps that we took to get to where we are now can always be improved. And I look for the future to be even better than it is right now, and I would like to be a part of that.
All right. Do you see any benefit to term limits for city commissioners in order to ensure new approaches to problems and new ideas?
You know, I used to think that maybe we should be like the president, 4 years and out, but there's a learning curve. And there's training that even though we think we know everything about what it takes to get things done, we don't know. And there's GMA training for that. So I think maybe 3 terms would be a good term, because it takes you the first 4 to learn what's going on, the second 4 to get things accomplished, and the third, then you might be able to really do some stuff.
All right. The protection of our neighborhoods against commercial encroachment is an ongoing struggle. Is there any way that the city can protect our neighborhoods so that citizens do not have to fight this battle again and again?
You know, as a commission, since I've been here, that's one thing we've always done, is try to protect the integrity of our communities. We got buffers, we got zoning, and those things that are there in place. What we have to do is enforce them and just continue to. Now, we get opposition, and sometimes we make decisions that aren't really grasped by everybody, but at the same time, we are always looking at the city and the way it's built up and try to keep that integrity going. We don't want the commercial all over, sprawling all over the residential areas. You want to be able to go into your residential area and it be a residential area.
Okay. Explain why it is necessary to sell the area that is now being referred to as the city's Central Park. It would seem that the majority of the citizens are against the sale and development. Recently, a social media page received over 800 members in 2 days who are opposed to this development. Explain your position.
My position is there was a comprehensive plan put into place, and the development of the city park at that time was to include businesses and walking trails, tie the area of Jackson Hill. You know, there are several different parts, historic part, the Civil War part. It's several different parts there. And it was to tie all that together with the, if you look at the way the millennials are living now, they want to be close to where they work. They're in walking distance. They want to have green space and trails, you know, and this is a way to try to get them all involved together. The purpose is to put an area there now, the one that's causing a lot of trouble. If we have the close proximity to downtown, which is one of our basic selling points, is to the people can live there. There's also access to walking trails, and the 11 acres we really having a problem with right now is I think it can be developed residential, but the zoning that is there now, you can put more destructive things there the way it is now. And this is a step-by-step process, and we are actually working on a plan that was put into place in 2000. So what we're actually doing is acting on something that the commission in 2000 put in place. So now we got to act on that.
Okay. The city is taking possession of the GE property with intentions of turning it into a park. Would the use of this property be better as a commercial development? How do you justify turning an industrial park into a park and at the same time turning what is being called the city's Central Park into a commercial property?
In all things we do, we need to consider all options. You know, nothing's going to be set in concrete. We need to look at where we're going in terms of how the comprehensive plan was set up. Do we need to tweak it? There's always the need for more green space because we've done away with it. I remember urban renewal came through and they just cut down everything, trees and everything with no idea about where we're going. So now the movers and shakers before me have set into place plans. We need to tweak them and look at all of our options when we do this.
Okay. We have a series of questions inspired by a recent U.S. Census. African American and Hispanic residents of Rome total over 40% of the population. Do the city's boards and committees reflect these numbers? How can the city do a better job at placing more minorities on its boards and commissions?
First of all, we need to look at our applicants. There's a list of applicants, and there are not many on there. There are some. And we move to do this every time, at all times, to get more diverse boards and organizations working together. Because we're gonna, as we go forth in the future, we're gonna have to form some weird partnerships that weren't here 20 years ago. But since the diversity has changed, we got to work at that. So what I would like to see is more people apply for some of these boards and organizations.
Okay. According to the U.S. Census, the population in Rome has decreased by almost a percentage point over the past 5 years. If population growth in Rome is too much to expect, what suggestions would you have to simply maintain the population that we have?
I think Rome can grow, but we got to have some magnets to draw people here. We are a mecca of education, I think, and something to keep these people, when they graduate from these higher institutions of learning, to stay here. So we got to progressively think progressive.
Okay. 30% of the children in Rome and Floyd County live below the poverty line. Is that an issue that the current commission is addressing in any way? Should the city commission be working on solutions or services for those who live in poverty?
Yes, and I would like to see the minorities get more involved, and because when I was coming along, we had poverty then, but education was the tool that my parents and grandparents stressed. We're working right now on getting the dropout rate, and we moved it. We moved it in the last 3 or 4 years, but we need to get it to 100%, I would like to see. And I think from education, we can get rid of this problem of poverty, because you got people who are ready to go into a workforce. So we can be creative in the workforce around, and we can get everybody motivated to live at a higher level.
If elected, would you be willing to have town hall meetings with the citizens in the area you represent in order to discuss upcoming controversial issues? Are there other ways that you plan to communicate with your constituents?
Well, I tell you, every commissioner should walk his ward at least once a year, because you'd be surprised at what you find. And I think that we should, as commissioners, always be cognizant of what's going on around us and in what ways we can help. If we keep the line of communication open between the grassroots, and that's where we got to start, is get the grassroots motivated to really take back what we've given up in our communities.
Do you believe that the city of Rome is doing enough to protect its historic buildings and areas on the National Register? Please explain.
Rome is a very historic town. And my father, before he passed, he always impressed on me that the church that he belonged to was a place that Sherman quartered his horses when he was in Rome. And people need to know the history of Rome. Some of it you won't like, but it's history. The buildings here, beautiful. And there's a move afoot in Georgia to preserve historic districts. And too bad we've gone through and covered up a lot of the cobblestone streets that we had, asphalted over, and with us moving more, I guess, toward a tourism town, we need those items, and I would like to see them all preserved.
There is discussion about creating an arts district in Rome. Do you think this would be a good time for the city to support an arts headquarters in Rome, perhaps to house the Rome Area Council for the Arts, especially with many other towns having a similar building, for example, Cartersville and Calhoun?
Art is a part of history, and we want to preserve history. So we need a place where we can say, hey, this is the art district. We got a lot of artifacts. We got people who are coming up and are able to create, and we need a place to preserve that. Yes, I would support them.
During your tenure, the current SPLOST will end. What project would you submit for a new SPLOST?
Right now, I can't say definitely what I would support, but I would have to consider any option that came to us. We need the people to tell us what we need to do, because they are the ones who are going to pay for this.
Do you feel that a substantial number of low-income or minority Romans have a lack of trust for local government? If so, what might be done to help solve this problem?
Yes, I think they have a lack of trust because my wife and I have talked to some groups, and they don't trust us. The thing that they say is the people in power sitting up in the ivory towers dictating to us what should go on here, and they don't know what goes on here. So we think that the best thing to do is to get a solution, let the people there be a part of the solution.
How would you suggest increasing the participation of young people in the process of local government and also encouraging them to vote?
Okay, voting is a thing that I can remember when it was hard for me to vote, okay? I remember my grandparents crying because they couldn't vote, and then we got the right to vote. Then we stopped talking to our kids about it. I've always taken my daughter into the polling booth with me and showed her what I was doing. She goes. In fact, she beat me out of the bed the other morning to go vote the first day, and I think she was number 2 in line. But it's a matter of education. We got to start back. I think in the olden times, everything went from word of mouth. We talked to you, we told you about what happened, your family history and all that. We need to get back to that. And until we do that, we got a problem, because there are too many people who don't know the history of Rome, the history of blacks in Rome. And so education.
Do you support the current system of voting for 3 candidates per seat? Doesn't this system give the incumbents an unfair advantage?
Well, that's the way I was elected. But I tell you, as commissioners, we are always tweaking the ordinances that are in place. And I think that now what we need to do is look at it. And again, I guess I beat this to death, consider all options and go from there.
Okay. Should Rome's mayor be elected by the citizens of Rome rather than selected by the commissioners?
The Rome mayor is, if we go to electing a mayor, that would be considered a strong mayor type government, which would do away with what we've got as the city manager. The mayor would then be elected, but I think the participation that we have from all the commissioners to elect the mayor, we still get the input. We still got a professional at the head of the government. So it would just be a matter of preference.
All right. Well, thank you, Commissioner, and we'll be right back right after this.
Millions of loving cats and dogs in shelters and rescues need our help to find a home. So go to theshelterpetproject.org, search your local shelters and rescues, and adopt already.
Welcome back to Community Watch. We've been joined by candidate for Rome City Commission, Sunday Stevenson for Ward 1. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
We're going to go ahead and get into our questions. What is your primary motivation for running for City Commission in this election?
My primary motivation is because I share the values that define the people of the city. I believe in the value of hard work. I believe in the value of energizing and maintaining strong, vibrant, and safe neighborhoods, have a willingness to serve, and I have the drive to make this a desirable place for our children and grandchildren. So often our children grow up and they go to college and they never come back home. So I don't want to come back to Rome. There's nothing there. I want this place, to be a city where our children would want to come back home. And I have that drive to serve.
All right, Ms. Stevenson, do you see any benefits to term limits for city commissioners in order to ensure new approaches to problems and new ideas?
Yes, I do, because sometimes we get complacent. After you've been in office for a while, this becomes routine. So I think that could be. That's like they have term limits for presidents, and I think that's the reason why, because we get complacent and we just don't think out of the box. So I think there should be a limit.
All right. The protection of our neighborhoods against commercial encroachment is an ongoing struggle. Is there any way that the city can protect our neighborhoods so the citizens do not have to fight this battle again and again?
A way to protect it, I think that there are ordinances that we can put in place. And I think we need to listen to the citizens in the neighborhoods, and that's one of the things that I'm standing on, to maintain strong, vibrant neighborhoods. And we don't want any encroachments on our neighborhoods, because that in itself is what the city is. The people, we have the people live there, but there's land where we can go with commercial buildings, but we need to keep our neighborhoods, the neighborhoods, city ordinances. That's what we're here for. We can come up with ordinances so that we can put things in place where the people don't have to fight for it. I think that is important. We have to preserve our natural resources, because if they're gone, when they're gone, they're gone. We can't get those back. So I think that is important.
Okay. Explain why it is necessary to sell the area that is now being referred to as the city's Central Park. It would seem that the majority of the citizens are against the proposed sale and development. Recently, a social media page received over 800 members in 2 days who were opposed to this development. Explain your position.
I think we need to go back to the very beginning of the process. When I had the memorandum of understanding with the Ledbetters, there were things that were going to, promises made, things that were going to happen with that. And I don't think that they listened to the citizens. That land belongs to the citizens of Rome. And there are people that are, and I'm one of those, that we need to preserve that. There's plenty of land here where we can go and to build. But if we have a chance to put, Central Park, Rome Central Park, we can do hiking trails, biking trails, just places where family can go and enjoy themselves. I don't think it's necessary right now to sell that. We need to go back to the drawing board on that. Now, I wasn't privy to be on the beginning of that, so I'm just coming in. So I've just read, and I haven't been to all the commission meetings where this started. I think back in several years ago. I was going to say 97, but that could be with the other thing that we were getting ready to have here in Rome. But it's been several years. But we need to go back to the drawing board. I think there's so many other things that we can do with that land, as opposed to putting apartments or whatever on it.
All right. The city is taking possession of the GE property with intentions of turning it into a park. Would the use of this property be better as a commercial development? How do you justify turning an industrial property into a park and at the same time turning what is being called the city's Central Park into a commercial property?
There again, I would have to go back and just look. I think you have to go back at the beginning of the process. I would have to go back and look at everything. But to make a sound decision, I have to have an open mind about everything. and I'd have to lay everything out on the table, just to make those wise decisions, to make sure that we're making the best decision for the common good.
All right.
We have a series of questions inspired by a recent U.S. Census. African American and Hispanic residents of Rome total over 40% of the population. Do the city's board and committees reflect these numbers? And how can the city do a better job at placing more minorities on its boards and commissions?
It is my belief that we do not, the city of Rome does not reflect what the citizens here. And we have to reach out to them. We get in place and we just stay in a little box and we don't reach out to others. There are people of all nationalities, all races that are more than capable, that can run and can sit on boards and be very effective. So we have to reach out to them. We have to let everybody's important, no matter what your color, what your race, and there's somebody somewhere that can do the job. So we have to reach out to them, let them know that what the process is, how you can take a part. So they're not always going to come to us because they're afraid. So you have to make them comfortable and let them know that yes, you can be a part. We want to know, we want to hear from you. We want you to be a part of this. So we have to reach out to them.
All right. According to the U.S. Census, the population in Rome has decreased by almost a percentage point over the past 5 years. If population growth in Rome is too much to expect, what suggestions would you have to simply maintain the population that we have?
That's quality of life. We have to have that's jobs, education, recreation. So we have to make sure that this city is a desirable place that people want to come here and live. So we have to go after the industries. We have to make sure that we have the recreations and the schools. Make sure that we have top performing schools. So we have to make sure and ensure that all the entities all together are working at the best of their abilities.
30% of the children in Rome and Floyd County live below the poverty line. Is that an issue that the current commission is addressing in any way? Should the city commission be working on solutions or services for those who live in poverty?
I think the city commission is there for all the people, no matter what your economic status is. So there should be things in place where they can help people. Yes.
All right. If elected, would you be willing to have town hall meetings with citizens in the area you represent in order to discuss upcoming controversial issues? Are there other ways that you plan to communicate with your constituents?
I think town hall meetings are important because it's the people that put us in office. So you have to listen to the people. And I'm not only concerned with my area is just one member of the whole part. So, we have to be concerned with the whole. So, yes, my area, I would like to see town hall meetings, but not only in my area, but in the other areas as well, because we all have to work together for the common good.
Do you believe that the city of Rome is doing enough to protect its historic buildings and areas on the National Register? Please explain.
I think so. For instance, our downtown development. They have rules and regulations and ordinances in place that they have to keep the buildings within the area in which they were built. So I think they do a pretty good job. We can always improve. There's always room for improvement, no matter what we do.
All right. There is discussion about creating an arts district in Rome. Do you think this would be a good time for the city to support an arts headquarters in Rome, perhaps to house the Rome Area Council for the Arts, especially when many other towns have a similar building, for example, Cartersville and Calhoun?
I was privy to attend the recent movie. Help me out here.
Oh, the film festival.
Film festival, yes. So that's part of the arts. And I think that's another leg of the quality of life. Mm-hmm. So yes, you sit down and look at it, and I do.
Okay.
During your tenure, the current SPLOST will end. What project would you submit for a new SPLOST?
I'd have to sit down with whoever comes up with the 2020, 2021 vision. We look down and see what Rome needs. I just couldn't say myself what we need, but it would be a collaboration. I would listen there with the town hall would come in, listen to the citizens, see what the citizens would like to have that we don't have. Go to our businesses, see what the business leaders would like to have, and then sit down and sit down with everybody and see what's on the list, and then come up with a list of what we could put on the SPLOST. But it just wouldn't be my decision.
All right. There is discussion regarding relocating the city's recycling center. Why is that necessary, and where would you like to see it relocate?
And that's something I have not studied. Now I'm aware of where it is right now, and I know that it is an eyesore to some, the way it looks there. I'd have to look and study and see what would be the best possible place.
Do you feel that a substantial number of low-income or minority Romans have a lack of trust for local government? If so, what might be done to help solve this problem?
In talking to what you call low income, yes, they do have a distrust, because you hear a lot of people say, well, it doesn't matter what I think. Or even as far as voting, it doesn't matter to me because nobody's listening to what I think. There again, town hall meetings would come into play. You need to listen to what the people of the city are saying, because it's the people of the city. It's not the council. It's everybody involved, and we need to listen to everybody and make them feel comfortable. Yes, what you think matters. Your vote does matter, and what you want to happen does matter, because you are a citizen here, and you are just as important as anyone else.
All right. How would you suggest increasing the participation of young people in the process of local government, and also encouraging them to vote?
There again, talking. You have to communicate. Communication is the key. Communicate. Get them out. Look, you need to start here, because you're going to grow up. You are the future. Now, we're here, but once we're gone, we're gone. We have somebody that has to follow behind us, and we have to train them. And you start when they're young. So communication is the key. And let them start bringing them to meetings. Encourage them. Grab them by the hand if you have to. But let them know, you're important, so you need to come along with us.
Okay, Ms. Stevenson, do you support the current system of voting for 3 candidates per seat? Doesn't the system give the incumbents an unfair advantage?
Do I support? This is the only way that I've known. Since I've been in Rome for 23 years, and this is the way that they've done it. Unfair? I don't know if. I'll say it's okay.
All right.
Yo, girl, man.
All right. Should Rome's mayor be elected by the citizens of Rome rather than selected by the commissioners?
Now, Rome has a city manager. And normally when there's a city with a mayor, the mayor has the same duties as the city manager. Now, in order for, I guess, if the citizens voted for the mayor, we'd have to sit down and decide if we were going to have a mayor and a city manager. And if so, what responsibilities would each person have? So that's where we'd have to decide if we're going to be managed by a manager and or mayor. So it depends on what the citizens would want and what we have to do.
Okay. Well, that was our last question. So thank you so much for being with us.
Well, thank you for having me.
All right. So you stay with us. We'll be back right after this.
Welcome back, and now we're joined with Commissioner Buzz Wachsetter, who is running for re-election in Ward 1. Thank you for being here, sir.
Oh, thank you, Greg. I'm always glad to be with you. I enjoy our talks both on camera and off, as we have for years.
All right, we're going to get right into the questions. What is
Please.
your primary motivation for running for the City Commission in this election?
My primary motivation hasn't changed one bit since I joined the Rome City Commission, and that is to create a better city for my children, now my grandchildren, and their children. A city that has a great environment, a city that has jobs, a city that has all kinds of economic opportunities, education like you all provide here, a city that can say there's no need that you really have to leave. And this is why I work hard in a lot of different areas, like redevelopment of Northwest Georgia Regional Hospital property, like working to entice industry to come to our town and locate in the city of Rome city limits so that we can get some financial advantage as well as jobs. Jobs are the most important thing. We hold ourselves out as the commerce center of Northwest Georgia in terms of retail. We hold ourselves out as the medical center, and we are, of Northwest Georgia, and that's great. And we are the educational center of Northwest Georgia. All this is wonderful, but we have to have jobs for people to come and locate in our city and stay in here. And we have to have adequate housing, and we have to have quality of life, and we have to have the arts. And it all comes together in a cohesive plan. And it's not just today, but what you plan for today, the fruition is years away. It's like the Chamber of Commerce. They'll tell you that they might work 10 years on bringing someone to town. And so it's all in a planning process, and it's all in a hard working process. And I like to see my mentor and late friend Napoleon Fielder used to say, I used to pick him up when we went to city commission meetings, and he'd always say, Buzz, just remember that working together works. You knew Napoleon, so how many times did he tell you that? So that's what you got to do.
Do you see any benefits to term limits for city commissioners in order to ensure new approaches to problems and new ideas?
Not necessarily. If I thought that term limits were the best thing, I wouldn't run. I think that as long as you have viable ideas, as long as you have energy, as long as you have that tug in your heart for the best interest of all the people of your community, I think you should run, and I think you should serve. I think service begins, though, way back. You and I have talked on many occasions before that volunteer service on behalf of your community by individuals within the community is a great place to start. And once you start there, serve on a committee or a commission of the city commission, serve on any of the other organizations in town. Once you've started that, and once you are able to get a resume, more or less, that says, hey, I've proven myself, and I feel confident that I can help, well, then you ought to run. And if the citizens feel that you are the best choice, you are the best choice. If they like what I have done over the years, they like the fact that I've tried to be progressive, they like the fact that I've worked hard for our community, both in town and going to Washington lobbying for things, they like that I have spoken out at the General Assembly on behalf of Georgia cities, I've been recognized by Georgia cities for my work. If they feel that I've done the adequate job, then I'll get reelected.
Okay. The protection of our neighborhoods against commercial encroachment is an ongoing struggle. Is there any way that the city can protect our neighborhoods so the citizens do not have to fight this battle again and again?
Well, sometimes it's not as hard a battle as some of the people want to make it out. Yes, do we like to listen to everybody? We certainly do. But at the same time, we are committed to the neighborhoods, the historic areas of our community, and we don't want to see undue infringement on those neighborhoods. It's time and time. You look at my votes, time and time again, you'll see if it doesn't make sense, we don't vote for it. There have been occasions where you look at it and say, is this land good for anything else? But there are times when people come and they don't even live in the neighborhood, and they're fighting us because they think that oh, we're encroaching on a neighborhood. We're not. We had a vote several months ago on a project that I caught criticism for, but it was for jobs, 20 new jobs for an area. It was to take a blighted area with no one living that close to it residentially and try and fix it up. And that's the things you have to look at. You have to evaluate. It's a scale that you look at. The Planning Commission first, the proposal goes to them, and that's a group of citizens. That's not us. It's vetted in public that way. Then it goes to us, and then we hold a public hearing. Under the law, we can't have an opinion on things that go before the Planning Commission until a public hearing is held before the City Commission. So if you as a citizen call me up and said, well, what do you think about so-and-so? I'll say, well, legally, I cannot have an opinion. I said, you can look at my previous votes. You can see how I've acted on other areas of the communities. I'm proud that I've protected the East Rome area. I'm proud of pushing down in South Rome for the work that I have down there. I'm proud of right now the NEP program that I pushed so hard to get some redevelopment in North Rome, and that NEP program is going to go to other areas of the city. And these things make me happy because it's progress, and it brings everybody together. And guess what? Working together does work. Excuse me.
Explain why it is necessary to sell the area that is now being referred to as the city's Central Park. It would seem that the majority of citizens are against the proposed sale and development. Recently, a social media page received over 800 members in 2 days who are opposed to this development. Explain your position.
Okay, let's start at the beginning. 10 years ago, we looked at that as a city commission and said, well, we've got a landfill over there that the day of reckoning is coming for it. We also have what used to be called a duck pond over there that never would hold water, and the city water department had to go open a spigot every now and then just to fill this land with water. So then we had other areas in there, and we went out for a proposal. We say, okay, anybody have an idea to develop this? Well, let me preface this by saying, when I was a younger guy in the JCs, I was one of those responsible for Ridge Ferry Park because I convinced my fellow JCs we needed this park along the river. I had the city grate off Old River Road over there, and we brought somebody in from the Georgia Parks Department, and they drove up in this old white state car. I'll never forget it, all polished up and nice, and we bogged down in the mud on Old River Road, and we had to get a motor grader over there to pull us out. But that was the birth of Ridge Ferry Park, and from that point we pushed and pushed and pushed, and we were able to get it. Now, excuse me, the question on Riverside. Okay, we looked at it, what to do with that area, again, years ago. And it was recognized that there should be the possibility of a Central Park. The Central Park was identified in a study that we really never adopted. It was one that we got from a consultant, but we really, excuse me, never adopted it. But the Central Park was clearly identified as Jackson Hill. And it would have 3 different types of trails. It would have a biking trail, it would have a Civil War trail, and it would have like a nature trail. And at the bottom of that hill, on the other side of Vaughn Road, would be overflow parking for the Central Park, which was Jackson Hill, and an RV park for people to come to Rome and park and put their RVs in there. Then there would be a trail that would connect to the Ridge Ferry Park. Well, we did get one proposal, and that was from the Ledbetter Brothers. And we looked at it, and they were proposing commercial development on it if it worked. And so we entered into what's called a Memorandum of Understanding, the MOU. The MOU clearly had protections in there, and clearly does today have protections in there, so that it's required that we have certain certain trails in there. It's required that a complete master plan be given to us that we look at and we approve before any sale is made. And we gave the developers, possible developers, permission to go in there and do due diligence. And so that's what we've done. Now, come to us, we've got a proposal to use a portion of that park for some apartments. Well, we looked at it, and I'm on the redevelopment committee, and we said, okay, to continue the investigation for the due diligence, let's go ahead and change the zoning on that corner, and let's see if there was a market for it, if it really meant anything to build. So that's what we voted on. We didn't vote to sell anything. That's a long way away. We didn't vote to fill in anything. In fact, CRBI showed up and said that corner that we were talking about, and that's all we were talking about, that corner they had no problem with it. So we felt comfortable about that. So we went ahead and we voted for it. So now they have another tool in their tool bag that they can go out as they merchandise. Will the whole thing be built? I don't know. I don't know. Will part of it be built? I don't know. So, but it all has to come together for a final decision that will be publicly vetted, like the Memorandum of Understanding was publicly vetted. We didn't do anything in secret. It was all done in the public. And there's some people in the public that don't like it. Now, to say the majority of the citizens, we've got 36,000 citizens in the city of Rome, and you're telling me I've not heard from a majority of the citizens that they're opposed to it. I've heard from a number of people, but it's nowhere close to 36,000. And I've heard from some people that have said, I like the idea, especially of the apartments right across from a park, because this is quality of life. That you're right across from your walking trails, you're right across from an area, green space and all this. Do I understand the feelings of the other people? I certainly do. And am I going to listen to them? Yes, I do. I don't just say no. I listen to what they say, but once again, I'm looking at the bigger picture, the longer picture, in what I think is in the best interest of the citizens today and then down the road. We went ahead in the same vein. We just added 123 acres of green space out in West Rome, which is going to be full of trails and a beautiful park. Hopefully, when we can get some money and a nice athletic field for kids back on the backside. And see, it's all part of the plan.
Okay. Then we have time for one more question. Well, actually, I'm told we don't. But thank you, Commissioner, for being with us, and we'll be right back right after this.
Your family, friends, and neighbors are all counting on you. Never let your gun get into the wrong hands. Remember, always lock it up.
Welcome back to Community Watch. We've been talking to candidates for Rome City Commission, Wards 1 and 3. We learned a lot. We hope you did too. Remember, the election is November 3rd. You can vote for up to 3 in each ward, or 2, or just 1. Thank you for being with us. Remember to vote. We'll see you next time on Community Watch.